Students, what's the funniest thing that happened in remote learning? One time a girl in my English class accidentally spent a solid 10 minutes talking to her boyfriend with her mic and camera on. She went into personal life details at points, but no one wanted to be the one to tell her. She eventually took out a bong. Which was when another student quickly said, Name. Your camera and mic are on. She turned both off without a word. Easily most awkward case of forgetting about the mic. Hold up. Is this connected to that image of someone getting a notification from someone else and saying that the class saw her take a fat bong rip? At the end of the class, the lecturer said thank you and goodbye to everyone, but forgot to turn the screen and mic off. They did a massive fart and a huge audible sign of relief. Parpa. The trouble of having such a good quality and sensitive mic. Thick bass. My professor was an old Italian man. Great teacher. And speaking English was rarely an issue as he spoke it almost perfectly. Just with a heavy accent. That is until one day on a Zoom he launches into a story about being fisted by his brother. He was like, for example, like when I was a child. There was this one time when my brother was fisting me really hard. And suddenly the whole class was just staring, eyes glued to the screen. He then continued, must read in heavy old man Italian accent, he was fisting me really hard and it was hurting. He is currently thrusting his fist back and forth through the air to the bemusement of the class, but he was my older brother, so there was nothing I could do to stop his vigorous fisting. Until one day I grow up big and strong enough to fist him back, proceeds to thrust his other fist through the air in the opposite direction. Miming fisting his brother back, and I fist him so hard that he becomes scared of my fisting. He never wanted to be fisted by me again. And so I never again had to be scared of his fisting. Everyone was silent and trying not to laugh until someone posted a link to the Urban Dictionary page for fisting in the chat. My professor started laughing so hard we thought he was going to die. He was pretty old, before playing a small game of charades and finally figuring out that he didn't know the English word for punching. Based on his reaction to being told the truth. That man has more grace and humor than most of us. He was probably the most down-to-earth professor I ever had. He never had the I am speaking to a crowd presence. And instead it was always like he was having a conversation. The class absolutely sucked due to the curriculum. But he was always the best part of it. My mom teaches high school seniors in a rural area. One kid showed up late, and when she said insert name, "Do you have a good excuse?" he replied, "Yes, Ms. Party. Shark Senior." I was training my show pig. They spent the rest of class with this student talking about what makes a show pig, showing the class his pig's tricks. At least it wasn't a show chicken. Professor started talking like he was giving a presentation. After like 10 minutes, someone finally pointed out he wasn't sharing his screen. At that point he just gave up for the day and let us go super early. Done that. Also talked with mic off. I've got lovely students who tell me these things though. Talking with my mic off seems to be my speciality. Thankfully my students are nice and tell me. Our teacher's toddler wandered in saying that daddy wants to know where you hid his underwear. We could not stop laughing. I think it turned out she hadn't hidden it and it was just in the wash. All one pairs. To be honest, it really seems like my hubs only has one pair of chones. He's always looking for a clean pair. One of my classmates went the entire class with a stormtrooper helmet on. My son wore a Halloween costume to a Zoom, was in 2nd grade last year. When my son is struggling to stay on class with his camera on, we get out his flash mask. It's kindergarten. You want to wear a flash mask? Go ahead, just pretend like you're paying attention. Professor's internet crashed. The class continued with one guy changing his Zoom background to a weather report of some random city. He proceeded to give a legit sounding news report of the weather. When the professor came back, he finished it off with "Back to you, Professor." Had me in tears. I want to try this, but my laptop can't handle Zoom backgrounds without a green screen. Mine couldn't either until the latest update. Not a student but teacher. I completely embarrassed myself by forgetting to end the recording after a Google Meet. The last 5 minutes of the session is me talking to my cat. Our school doesn't have the premium software to edit the recordings, so it had to go up on Google Classroom. Cat chat and all. Kids were asking how fluffy butt my cat is doing. Hilarious but mortified. You could download the video and edit it pretty easily. You know. For when it happens next. I thought the same, but as I work from a school-provided laptop, I don't have the administration rights to download video editing software. If you know any other tips, I'd be super grateful though. Fingers crossed I don't make the same mistake again. A couple weeks ago I'd lost track of time and didn't realize that Zoom had started. My lovely daughter turned the camera toward me and unmuted. The whole class watched me dance with and sing to my dogs. I didn't know until she pulled off her headphones and I heard a dozen kids laughing. Last semester, my son's class saw my husband set the kitchen on fire. Teachers hate my house. Lol. Last semester. I can't believe we're more than one semester into a pandemic. This is the third semester of virtual learning technically. My professor turned on closed captions, and when he finally figured out what it was, he was like, "What type of communist Nintendo technology is this? Mario is red." I think that professor was watching too much Game Theory. Tests are the only time we are required to have our cameras on. While looking through her students, my professor noticed something on someone's desk. The interaction went like this. "Professor, please tell me you are not drinking Pepsi for breakfast." She points at the 2-liter bottle of Pepsi on his desk. Student. Nah. Leans forward off camera. It's Drive. Pepper? Shows the camera a 2-liter half-empty bottle of Drive. Pepper? Professor. That's so unhealthy. You're medical professionals. Student. Not yet. Takes a swig of soda. I laughed my ass off. And that conversation made my day. Not yet Lamau XD. Just now my literature teacher had to do a call with his little daughter all over him. He even lent her his phone to have her shush down, but she would block it and run to him to unblock it every 5 minutes. Peak of the class is her screaming bloody murder while his wife emerged from the door behind him as my teacher was trying to explain who invented the word robot. Wait. Who invented the word robot? I wanna. Asimov's. I'm guessing Isaac Asimov. Asimov, as far as I could find, invented the spin-off of that word. Robotic. But the word robot was invented by a Czech writer Karl Oppik as a variation of the word robota, which in Czech means something like slavery. He used it in his play R. U. Are describing artificial people manufactured in a factory in 1920. One of my friends screamed as loud as he could, "Oh fuck," when my teacher asked him what was wrong. He said, and I quote, "Sorry, I just got attacked by my rooster." My teacher was just like, "Will, show me your rooster." He then proceeded to go outside and show my teacher his 10 chickens outside. Literally wasted half a class and was an absolute legend. Would have been better if the rooster attacked again. Some guy I know took a crap with his mic on unknowingly. It was silent. Then just a little plop. I'm dying just thinking about it. One time our priest forgot to turn off his microphone and he went to pee during the passing of the peace. You could drop a pin and hear it waiting for him to wash his hands. This is why you should always wash your hands. Don't want to Frank Drebin it in front of the whole congregation and then forget to wash your hands. LPT. I had a 9 a.m. class and the professor was being so obnoxiously loud and the student didn't know their mic was on and called the professor annoying and said he was going to jerk off to pass time. What did the professor say? I'm a join. Kind of funny. My whole class watched as our professor fell off his chair, stood up, and started screaming for his wife to call the ambulance. His arm was broken. I guess he was in shock or something because then he continued with the lesson for another 45 minutes until paramedics had arrived, stabilized him and were ready to take him to the hospital. He then told us to have a good day and that we would end today's lesson a bit earlier. Make sure you get him a really nice get well gift from your class. Like a bottle of JD. We actually gifted him 2 bottles of wine. One red and one white. He always talks about liking this wine brand, but no one could remember him ever saying if he liked the red or white one, so we got both also. We know nothing about wine, so if wine brand isn't the right word, I'm sorry. Probably when this kid in my class said she's licking his ass when we were watching the beginning of Land Before Time where Littlefoot's mother licks him. He didn't know his mic was on. How old are you? You're watching the Land Before Time in class but also using Reddit? We have some new speak called advisory where we learn about stuff like equal rights, mental health, and that kind of stuff. I have no peeping clue why we are watching Land Before Time. When my teacher didn't understand something, so he let out some colorful language. Realized his mic was on. Laughed nervously, then went on like nothing happened. A certain girl named Beth changed her clothes without shutting off the camera by accident. That is an actual nightmare. I am so sorry. Well, 2 instances that come to mind. 1. We had been having a rough week as a class with assignments and exams. One of my professor's kid came on near the microphone and said, "You okay? Really? I love you all." It was a little thing, but it made all of us smile for sure. 2. This happened a couple of weeks before those exams. We weren't in the right headspace because back then Amazon wasn't delivering. So none of us had books as such, and it was difficult to manage assignments without them. One of our professors asked us to close whatever notebook we had in front of us and spent the next 2 hours of her class talking about mental health of each one of us. More than half the people cried that day on that VC, but none of us felt weird or anything. So wholesome. I want this teacher.